Hello, welcome to the debate on Sky News. I'm Martin Stamford. Here's our take on developments brought together from the UK, the USA and around the world. With just days until Iowa, is this Republican candidate unstoppable? And just ahead of the final TV debate, will he even bother to show up? Too male and too white. Is a little change a little too late for Hollywood? Host Chris Rock is rewriting his opening monologue. We wonder, what should he say? First to the race for the White House, and they're running neck and neck. Now even Ted Cruz says Donald Trump could be unstoppable if he wins next week's Iowa caucus. As we record this show on Wednesday, we are 24 hours or so away from the last TV debate before Iowa makes its decision. And as we speak, an unresolved spat between Fox News and Donald Trump could mean that Mr. Trump does a no-show. Well, as usual, Democrat commentator Jeffrey Robinson is standing by in New York. Conservative commentator Armstrong Williams is in Washington. Let me go to Armstrong first on this occasion. Should he show up, Armstrong?
It is a colossal mistake. One of the most important things about running for president is your temperament. And Mr. Trump should, in spite of the fact that he may have issues with Megyn Kelly, he is bigger than all of this. He's leading the polls. I mean, what is going on in his mind and the mind of his advisors to make him believe that he's the front runner and dominating, and he doesn't need to show up for this presidential debate? Fox will make a parody of him with the empty chair. He will be the casualty of it all. And are we in the media are going to give in to candidates just because they don't like our anchors? They demand that they don't participate, and we're going to kowtow to that? There's no way we can embrace that kind of precedent.
Jeffrey, what do you think? What should Fox News do? Should they change the anchor person?
No, not at all. From a journalistic standpoint, Armstrong is right. From every other standpoint, he's dead wrong. This is not a colossal mistake. It's a colossal gamble, and a gamble that is calculated. Roger Ailes has released, or at least in his name, has released a couple of tweets and press releases that have basically ridiculed Trump. And Trump is not going to do what the other Republicans always do, which is kowtow to Fox News. Now, journalistically, no, he should not be allowed to select his questioners. But from this standpoint, there will not be an empty chair. There will simply not be a place for him. I mean, the podium will not be. It will not be an empty podium on the stage. There will be 7 podiums. That's all. The fact is that he will not show up. He's going to hold an alternative event. Now, if that event for the wounded warriors and disabled veterans is big enough, he will get coverage from all of the other networks. And you'll see if the viewership drops, as I suspect it will, substantially, because nobody cares about those other 7 people. Trump is the star, and if he doesn't show up, they're not going to watch the debate. They will watch him instead on the alternative channels. If that happens, his gamble will have paid off big time. And I think he knows what he's doing.
Well, let's bring in Kate Andrews, who's a research fellow at Adam Smith Institute, a columnist at London's first free city newspaper, that's City AM, and a fully paid up member of Republicans Overseas. Fully paid up in the sense it's free to join. I know that, Kate. What do you make of this Donald Trump no-show issue? Do you think he should go to the debate?
Well, I think it just feeds into the personality that he's already showing to the world, which is that this election is about him. It's about him getting more attention. He was a huge star, and the only way to become a bigger star is to run for president of the United States. But this has nothing to do about communicating the issues he has to the people, has nothing to do about representing people's issues on a national platform. It has to do with him and his pride and the attention that he gets. And the fact that he is boycotting Fox News for putting Megyn Kelly back up on that platform, a world-renowned journalist who has proven herself time and time again to be fair and competent. The fact that he's boycotting her because she brought up months ago some things that he has factually said in the past about women is not helping the persona that he's already, other people already believe him to have about his relationship with women and minorities.
And yet, Kate, some of the polling they did after that whole spat and the thing he said the next day about Megyn Kelly, insinuating either directly or indirectly that she was menstruating at the time of the debate, and this was some reason why she was so horrible to him. Did that really damage Donald Trump in the eyes of women voters?
Here's the thing, we don't know yet. We don't know if his comments about women, and Megyn Kelly specifically, his comments about Muslim immigration, his comments about Mexicans, we have no idea if this has hurt him yet. We will find out on Monday. The polls have put him ahead of Senator Ted Cruz again back in Iowa. The polls on the whole are suggesting that Donald Trump is going to win in Iowa. If those polls turn out to be correct, then it very well may be the case that this angry rhetoric is working with a large amount of people who want to show up to vote. But if it's the case, and I suspect there's a potential for this, that we come away from Monday realizing that the kind of people who say they're going to vote for Trump are not the likely voters who do show up and vote for Trump, then he is in real trouble.
Just bringing Jeffrey and Armstrong back into the conversation now. Jeffrey, just remind us of the folklore around Iowa. It sort of goes first and everybody puts an awful lot of store by it. But does it really matter that much?
No, it actually doesn't, except in this case. I mean, look at which Republicans won Iowa in the past. You know, Rick Santorum. Who? Why bother? It doesn't mean anything, except in the case of Trump and Cruz. If Trump beats Cruz, and I expect he will, because this stand against Megyn Kelly and Fox is exactly what his electorate wants him to do. He's standing up to bullies, and they like that. If he wins in Iowa, he will win in New Hampshire, he'll win in South Carolina, and Kate and Armstrong and all their Republican establishment friends are going to sit there shaking their head, wondering how they let this get away from him. Because if he wins those three, it's basically over. He's already ahead in the polls in Florida, beating Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio combined together. They will lose to him. This is a runaway train, and there's very little they can do to stop him, except hope that somehow Ted Cruz, who, by the way, is ineligible to be president, wins in Iowa.
What?
Oh, well,
what?
Hang on.
Was that just asserted that Ted Cruz is ineligible to be president?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. This was ridiculous. And I was no Barack Obama supporter, but this was ridiculous in 2008, and it's ridiculous now. The law is clear about this. He is an American citizen, and he was at birth. I'd also like to point out that the establishment is not exactly my friend, and I don't think that this is exactly a runaway train. The establishment has been attacking Ted Cruz more than it's been attacking Donald Trump, probably because they're worried that people like Ted Cruz and Rand Paul might change the establishment in a way that is not change. We can't change it back. I think it's going to be clear where some of those pitfalls were. I will certainly be worried if Donald Trump ends up being a winner in these three states, but I don't think the establishment and I will be on exactly the same page.
Let me bring in Armstrong here. Can Ted Cruz stand? Can he be president?
Ted Cruz put so much of his resources, had the best ground game in Iowa, and when Mr. Trump began to challenge him on what is a ridiculous, whether he's a American citizen or not, is pretty outrageous. It's so sad that it began to stick with the press and that narrative began to spread. You know, listen, Ted Cruz doesn't have many friends in the United States Senate. Ted Cruz is being undermined by many people that he has played roughshod over in that body where there's decorum, there's respect, and you don't use nuclear tactics. And so much of what is happening to him, even with the governor Branson in Iowa, who came out in a clear assault on him, and others. It has to do with the fact that they just don't like him. They don't like his combative personality. But I do think that our guest makes a very good point. This is not about the establishment. Look, I think that this Trump not showing up, and I'm not sure he's going to follow through with it. I hope he comes to his good senses. He is not above the debates. He's not above the fact that he has showed that even in what they used in the papers, if he were in a meeting with Putin, you just don't walk out because you don't get your way. You got to go in and face these people head on. And to Jeffrey's point, where he's totally wrong, over 60% of his supporters say that Trump should show up tomorrow night at the debate. It's just a colossal mistake. It plays into the hands of the fact that he thinks he's too good for it. He even made the comment last week, which was outrageous. If people saw him shooting people live, they will still vote for him. It plays into his ego and his arrogance to believe that he can do any and everything he wants to do, and the people will not leave him. And I think he's sadly mistaken.
Jeffrey, just explain to us, just wind back a second, on why you think Ted Cruz, born to an American citizen and his mother, right, is not eligible to be a president?
It's not what I think. It's what a number of constitutional experts, including Larry Tribe, Cruz's constitutional law professor at Harvard, think, and what people in Illinois think who are going to deny him to be on the ballot because he is not eligible. Citizenship at birth for a non-resident citizen, if you're born overseas, the way Cruz was, born in Canada, citizenship is bequeathed by a request from a U.S. citizen parent. I know this firsthand because both of my children were born in France. Within 12 hours of their birth, they had U.S. passports and a birth certificate that said, a certificate of an American born overseas. They are entitled to citizenship through me. You have to ask for it. It is always granted. But that's not what the Constitution says. Armstrong's dead wrong about you can run if you're a citizen. The Constitution says natural born American.
Yeah.
Cruz was born in Canada. Doesn't matter who his mother was, doesn't matter who his father was, although he might also have had Cuban citizenship. It matters where he was born. And under Canadian law and U.S. law, which recognizes Canadian law, he is a natural born Canadian. And that's in the Constitution. So our young friend Kate really needs to get educated on this because it is not ridiculous. The point is the Constitution says natural born American because in the 18th century, there was a debate in England about natural born British. And the British Parliament ruled that if you are the child of a British subject born overseas, you will be considered a natural born Briton. The American founding fathers specifically rejected that. They didn't say the American president has to be a citizen. They said he has to be a natural-born American, and Ted Cruz is a natural-born Canadian.
Well, hang on. Let me give Kate some comeback here. Kate Andrews?
This is some of the best news I've had in a while, because the whole time I was thinking that Donald Trump supporters were on such a high and they thought that they were so close to victory. They were just going to sweep up all of the primaries and move on. But back in 2008, when John McCain supporters were getting pretty desperate, they brought out all of this birthright citizen nonsense. They were accusing Barack Obama of not having an American birth certificate. They were accusing him of all these different things, and they were desperate. And I'm really pleased to hear that Donald Trump supporters are actually not doing as well as I suspected. Because for you to be accusing Senator Ted Cruz, one of the most conservative candidates on the stage, for not being a naturally born American citizen, and he is a naturalized American citizen. Yes, he is. He was born to an American mother in Canada. He is immediately granted American citizenship. He is immediately granted American citizenship. This is ridiculous, and I am so pleased to see that the Donald Trump supporters are struggling so much that they are bringing out these kinds of arguments. Listen to yourself. This is nonsense.
But hang on, listen, we're not the constitutional experts are going to go over and over this, and I don't think we're going to solve it in the next 2 or 3 minutes. But can I please ask you one other question, which is that Michael Bloomberg, Jeffrey, what's up? Jeffrey,
I have to get this in. It has nothing to do with citizenship. The words in the Constitution are natural-born American. John McCain was a natural-born American, having been born in the Panama Canal Zone, which was an American territory, on a U.S. naval base, which is American sovereign territory. Same thing with Barry Goldwater, having been born in Arizona territory, U.S. territory. Barack Obama was born in Hawaii. But interestingly enough, what Ted Cruz said about Barack Obama at the time is he's not eligible to be president because he was born of a Kenyan father in Kenya, which is not true. What he said of his own problem is, I was born of an American mother in Canada. It's of no significance who my father was. I mean, that's utter double talk. The Constitution is very clear. Natural born American has nothing to do with the fact that he's a citizen. He is eligible to run. The Supreme Court will rule against him when it goes. There will be lawsuits. He will not be on the ticket.
Enough. Time out. We're not going to fix this in the next couple of minutes of our programme, I don't think. But I do want to put to you one other thought, and this is the Bloomberg factor which emerged over the last 7 days. Now, don't scoff too much, because I think it's a fascinating prospect. If there is a candidate from the hard left, if there is a candidate such as a Trump from the extreme right, Michael Bloomberg, one-time mayor of New York, says he might run and go right through the middle. Let me ask Kate, what do you think of that idea?
Well, Bloomberg, I think, went off the rails a little bit towards the end of his time in New York. He's cracked down on sugary drinks or things that don't really resonate with Americans. I know that debate is happening over here in the UK, but on the whole, Americans get very upset when the government tries to interfere in the home and interfere certainly in the products that they're going to buy or feed to their families and their kids. That being said, he has a long tenure and he accomplished much during his time in New York. I think another billionaire getting involved in the race, putting his own money behind it, I think it's probably too late. It's probably too much. Probably seems a little too similar to Trump, even though their views, I would say, are drastically different. I think what you were more likely to see if, say, Donald Trump got the nomination and so did Bernie Sanders, which I think is unlikely, but possible. He's leading Hillary in the polls in both Iowa and New Hampshire. I think it's possible you'd see one of the more establishment Republicans run as an independent. Not guaranteeing that by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think you might see more people enter into the race. I don't think Bloomberg has the backing from either party. That's the fundamental problem, is that he is in many ways an independent, and he wouldn't have the establishment Republicans or the establishment Democrats helping his campaign.
Kate Andrews, good to meet you today. Thank you very much indeed. Now, a reminder, you can catch up with the Sky News debate on Apple TV, on Roku, and catch up, and of course at skynews.com/US. The Academy says it's going to some lengths to make their members less male and less white after intense criticism over its lack of diversity in this year's Oscar nominations. Hollywood is, after all, a global advertisement for the United States. So what does this controversy say about the great nation? Well, Sam Fullwood III is from the Center for American Progress. So he joins us now from our Washington studio. Sam Fullwood, thank you for being with us today. What do you think this Oscar spat? Is it a storm in a teacup, or is there something really fundamental gone wrong here?
Yes and no to both questions. I think that it is a storm in a teacup in the sense that vast numbers of people aren't paying attention to whatever the Oscars are going on. It's sort of a closed shop. But there is a really large point to be made by what's going on with this controversy, as you call it. The Oscars, the movie industry, Hollywood, really does have a global impact on our society and on the world by projecting images, and those images have a way of sticking and becoming reality for large numbers of people. I notice this because whenever I travel internationally, the one common denominator that I always hear is people talking about the movies that they have seen and the movies that come out of Hollywood. It is a way of sort of exporting our culture and sometimes imposing that culture on other cultures. And so the failure to be as inclusive as possible out of Hollywood is a serious problem.
And is it down to the judges who may or may not select the widest possible range of actors, or do you think it's one of those things that just the movies and the roles that black actors played this time around just didn't make the cut?
Well, you know, I think that there is a system that is in place that makes this whole thing the problem. Yes, there are not very many black or Hispanic or Asian actors who are getting meaty roles. But part of that has to do with how the industry finances its movies, who gets to greenlight what is done, what scripts are shown to what agents. There's a whole network that's involved in making movies. And for the most part, people of color and other minorities are not a part of that network. So that you can pull on one thread of it and it reverberates through the whole spider web of Hollywood.
Let me bring in Jeffrey and Armstrong at this point. Armstrong, how do you take this row? Do you think it's a concocted row?
Listen, I think there's some indications about Hollywood. And I mean, let's just look at what they've signed off on in terms of black actors and actresses winning the Oscar. You look at Monique and Precious, you look at Denzel Washington in Training Day, you look at Halle Berry and Monster Ball, really demeaning roles, which was really protested loudly within many circles when it was announced. And yet you see the wonderful roles they play, where they're role models and the kind of values and virtues that they represent. They were not even closely selected to win the Oscar for those roles. I think Hollywood does all the right things. They march, they speak out against racism, they speak out against bigotry. They're the first to take the Republican Party and others to task, but yet they don't deal with their own racism, their own bigotry, and their own sense of the roles that blacks should play, and what and who and what is deserving of an Oscar. So I think this is a systemic issue. I think what Sam and others are talking about only scratches the surface. I think liberal Hollywood, whether people are willing to admit it or not, is probably still one of the most racist bastions of racism in America.
Jeffrey, do you read Hollywood like that?
No, of course not. I mean, I happen to be a lot closer to the situation than Armstrong is. The Film Academy is made up of 51 governors. My brother's one of them, and he's also on the main board. And they have been meeting frantically to come up with a solution. And he says that will increase diversity. I think it's going to double it or triple it by the year 2017 or 2020, I think it is. They are very concerned. But you spoke about judges who nominate these films. That's not how it works. And Sam will tell you that the way it works is the 6,000 members of the Academy get screeners from the producers and the studios, and they vote to nominate, and then they vote on the nominations to win. So this is down not to the Board of Governors, who really want to do something, and you will not find a more liberal bunch when it comes to gender equality, sexual proclivity equality, racial equality. You won't find 51 more liberal people in the entire country. The fact is, the president of the Academy is a black woman named Cheryl Boone Isaacs. Unfortunately, I looked down the list, and she may be the only black face on the Board of Governors. So
it does need to, it is broken then, Jeffrey, and Sam, coming on this, it is broken. The membership needs to change, doesn't it?
No, not the membership, because the membership is made up. The membership is made up of the 6,000 people in the film business. What has to change is at the studio and production level, where they lobby these 6,000 members very, very hard for political and commercial reasons. That's what needs to change. The Academy will do what it has to do, but it's the 6,000 members who are being constantly bombarded by the studios and the producers to nominate, and that system somehow has to change.
Sam?
I don't think that we have a real strong disagreement here. There is a system in place for nominations for Oscars. That system is skewed in such a way that people of color, minorities, and others are not a part of the system, and that's the real problem. I think that Hollywood, as an industry, gets a misnomer for being declared liberal or conservative. What they really are capitalists, and they're looking to maximize their investments. So that really has nothing to do with what we're really talking about. What we're really talking about is the system that they have in place for determining who gets nominated and who does not get nominated, and the real-world implications for what happens when those people do or do not get nominated, do not get recognized for contributing to the image-making that Hollywood produces.
And let me put the point to all of you. I mean, if there was some kind of quota system in place, where once you got up to some kind of nominations, or hang on, we haven't got any person of colour in this list, so we're going to have to bump them up. That wouldn't then be a basis of winning out of merit, would it? It would be in order to fulfil the quota, Armstrong.
You know, it all boils down to your values, your perspectives, what you consider to be entertainment, what you consider to be Oscar worthy. And many come from different backgrounds. And while you may say this film is the best, it's still a judgment call. I mean, when you hear people like Jada Pinkett and Will Smith, her husband, say that they're not going to attend the Oscars this year, I mean, they're a part of the Hollywood structure. They produce the films, and they're a part of the inner circle. Even yet, they cry out against what is systematic, and I think Sam Fullwood is exactly right. There's not a system in place where these people can vet minorities in these roles to the point where they're considered for an Oscar. And I still believe that they also have in their minds what is defined as a role for minorities and what's defined as what is Oscar worthy when a minority is portraying and acting in that role.
Jeffrey?
No, the nominations, the primaries, the first batch of films is selected by the studios and the producers. They're the ones that say, we're going to put this up for a nomination and not this one. That's where the problem lies. The 6,000 people who vote on it only get what the studios and the producers send them. Those are the choices. They then vote, and it's narrowed down to whether it's 6 or 8 or 11 in some cases, however many nominations, which they then vote on a second time for a winner. But the choice of films doesn't come from the Academy. They have nothing to do with it.
Okay.
It doesn't come from the members. They have nothing to do with it. It comes
final thought for Sam here. Chris Rock was asked, wasn't he, to consider should he back out as some kind of protest. He's going to stick there and do the hosting job, but apparently he's rewriting his opening words. I wonder what he's going to come up with and say. Sam?
Chris Rock is a brilliant comic, and I would not try to put words into his mouth for failing to be able to be as funny as he might be. I think that it is likely that he's going to poke a lot of fun at the Academy. And in a way, I kind of feel that misses the point because it lets them off the hook. By laughing at themselves, they're sort of saying we aren't what people are saying we are, when in fact they really are.
Sam Fullwood, thank you very much for being our guest today. Now, we've all been there. What to wear to work each day? Here's Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg's solution to that weekday worry. This image of his wardrobe he posted as he prepared to return to work after the birth of his daughter, Max. Now, gentlemen, we've been doing this programme long enough to know that you've got a much bigger wardrobe or a much more colourful wardrobe than Mark Zuckerberg. But can you understand why he does that, Jeffrey? It kind of makes the decision-making simple.
Yeah, he does it because he's worth $36 billion. And when you have all the marbles, you get to dictate the rules of the game.
Armstrong, surely you should advise him. You're much better turned out and sartorially beautiful than he is.
I think the way Zuckerberg dresses is very important. I think it sends a message to people just because you accumulate wealth. You don't have to be materialistic. You don't have to wear the fanciest of clothes. You can wear a T-shirt and jeans, and that appeals to his demographic because I think we place so much emphasis on materialism, whether they're buying, whether they're driving a Bugatti, or whether they're riding in a Rolls Royce. And I think it's a wonderful example by him that he's a simple person. He's dresses simple. It doesn't take anything away from his wealth. I think it makes him more wealthier in terms of the values that emanates from him when people see him in that role.
Good to talk to you guys. Jeffrey, Armstrong, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
And that's it for this edition of The Debate. You can continue watching Sky News on Apple TV, on Roku and Catch Up, and of course at skynews.com. Until next time, goodbye.